That would be more significant than 10 times what I'm doing, I have to say. What I'm doing as a scientist, I would feel like I wasted it, and I would immediately pivot to this. And I'm not unwilling to do that. I've changed my career, from, just being a pure scientist that does nothing else to being a podcaster to being an author. I'm comfortable with making pivots. I'll do that in a reinvention in a second. It has to be warranted. And so don't make an enemy out of scientists who spend their frickin' jobs looking at space in many different domains, from the radio to the X-ray and everything in between, from gravitational waves and then their partners in the theoretical sciences. Don't make enemies out of us just because we disagree with your innate feeling, which is only a feeling, which is ultimately psychological in nature and not scientific, that aliens must exist, and maybe even that I've had an alien encounter. We're not even saying that. Don't make enemies of us. Partner with us, work with us, support us, get more funding for research into this. I just had, I'm going to be meeting with my friend David Spergel, who's the president of the Simons Foundation, which funds my research in cosmology. He led the NASA study panel on UAPs. And people came out, oh, he's just he did a terrible job. And of course, he's just speaking the party line, because it came out and it didn't show that there was credible evidence. Even they didn't even say that there's no evidence for it. They just said that 90% plus can be explained by pedestrian means. And they gave multiple examples of these phenomena, from atmospheric effects to government, to spies, to drones, to DARPA, all these different things. They give examples, some of which are redacted and classified. And there's 10% left over. But that also doesn't mean, there's a 10% chance Elvis is still alive. You can't fault David Spergel. You can't fault the members of this panel, which are esteemed astronomers, physicists, military personnel. You're just fighting a losing battle. You should look for ways that you can get access to the data and then support them. And I'm not involved in that. That's not what I do. I don't do anything related to that other than host people like Ryan and Tom DeLonge, and I'm open to it. But at a certain point, there's emotions run so high with this, and I think it has to do with the fundamental, almost quasi-religious belief.
Yes, 100%.
That we are not alone, because it's terrifying, Julian. If we're alone, isn't it terrifying?
It's scary.
Yeah. So I think that animates people. And I'm sympathetic to the people that want to believe, but no scientist should ever say, I want to believe. They should say, I want more data.
That's the thing, though. People aren't just looking for the truth. They're looking for the truth they want to be true. Yeah. And that's at the core. I try to separate all the noise with this whole topic. And there's a lot of different topics I do this with, but on this one in particular, it's like, yeah, it'd be mad interesting if there were a bunch of beings like fucking looking at us or living among us, no less, or something like that. But, I do still believe that it would be questionable to not assume that there's life out in that viciously long galaxy. But the evidence we could have for it here, if someone came up and showed me good evidence tomorrow that nothing had ever been here, I determined it to be like better than evidence I saw to the contrary, I'd take it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's just the nature of the beast. But listen, I would have a million other things that I want to talk with you about.
Part 2, okay?
We're gonna have to do that. This was an awesome conversation. We didn't even get to like consciousness stuff. We didn't get to any AI. We only just scratched the surface of aliens right there. So there is definitely gonna be a Brian Keating part 2, but I know you gotta go meet with the other Brian Green over at Columbia. Right. But before you go, where can everyone find your show? What's it called and what's it on?
So it's called Into the Impossible podcast, and on my YouTube channel it's called Dr. Brian Keating, and we cover everything from the brain to the Big Bang, everything in between, from the cosmos to the consciousness. And I am interested in basically anything scientific because I want to pay back a debt that I owe to my heroes like Carl Sagan, like Brian Greene, like Stephen Hawking, that inspired me that I could become a scientist. And they inspired me not through their scientific papers, which I couldn't comprehend until relatively recently. They inspired me through their popular books. And I endeavored to explain it, never to dumb down. People say, oh, you're good at dumbing down. I hate that. I don't want to dumb down. I want to treat you with respect and say, I'm going to encourage you to have that stretch goal. Like I say, these podcasters with 3,000 subs get to 10,000. Give me something to inspire you. Give me a hook. Give me an in. Once you're in, you're going to get addicted. I promise you, because it's the best script ever written. And we just have to be actors that rise to the challenge to perform this play and the grandest spectacle of nature.